All right, this is first episode, testing it out. Courtside Cousins, we're gonna have some mistakes. We're gonna have some errors. We're gonna see how we do. But yeah, first episode of the podcast. Um, Only goes up from here, so looking forward to it. Uh, Cousin Luca with me. Both out here in Jersey, just not in the same room. But yeah, I think we ought to just get into it. First round of the playoffs just wrapped up. So we'll just go series by series. Probably share some thoughts. Give our opinions. Not that we believe that they matter any more than anyone else's opinions out there. But yeah, I mean we'll just start right off the bat here. Just because it wrapped up yesterday, so we'll start in the East. Detroit pulls it 4-3. It really in the second half they sort of ran away with that one. Magic didn't have the firepower. Anyone other than Paolo did not particularly show up in Game Seven. What did you see from Game Seven?
I mean, uh, I think not having Franz Wagner was probably like the biggest like difference in that series. Um, Knowing that he's like the second leading scorer on that team, and Game Seven was definitely a pull away for Detroit, showing that they are, rightfully so the number one seed. So
I mean, I think so. So I'm a little torn with the Magic and where they go. Obviously, this morning Jamal Mosley, um, you know, parting ways with that organization. I think ultimately, like the uninventiveness of the Magic offense is probably what did them in. I think. Obviously Franz goes down. There's a huge lack of scoring there. I think when they traded for Bain, and like we don't even need to get back into the fact that they gave up three firsts, and not just three firsts, but three first, as well as some young talent as well for Bain. And I think when you make a trade like that, and like you have to be certain that that's the piece that gets you deep into playoff contention, because you can always retool a little bit towards hey, we're consistently in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're consistently, maybe we have a real tough opponent in the semis, but in general we feel really good about where we're headed as an organization. And I think you make the trade for Bane, and I don't think they were there yet. They were a first round exit when they made the playoffs last year. I don't think Bane is one of the players that really put a lot of fear into anyone that was watching the Magic. I also think the Magic locked themselves into a situation where Franz was their number two option. And I think Franz is a great player, great young player. Honestly, I was a proponent of, like, I think that was a great contract that he got. I don't think it was that high of an overpay, but I also think it's a third option sort of contract. And I don't think Bane, like, I think Bane's a third, fourth option on a team that's really looking for a deep competitive playoff run. And so I just don't think they had the firepower. I don't think they're constructed to have the firepower. I mean, there was a lot of times where you're looking for, like, hey, can Anthony Black get something going? We needed the Wendell Carter game. And those are good role players in the league, but they're not gonna, they're not going to be the factors that make people think that the Magic could be an Eastern Conference Finals team.
yeah, they definitely needed Franz, obviously, but I think this was the past 2 years have been a really good like showing of what the Magic will be. I think good draft picks, and if they didn't trade away so many draft picks to Bane, um, I think getting good draft picks, because a couple of the drafts coming up are pretty loaded, especially this upcoming one. So they could have gotten some really good picks if they didn't trade for Bane, which he was, a good player. He definitely played better, I think, in Orlando than he did in Memphis. Um, so yeah,
I mean, I think that's also one of the situations is, like, hindsight's always 2020. So I'm not, it's not that it was such a catastrophic trade when they decided to make that trade. It was, you don't know who's going to be in the draft in the future. And when you make a trade of 3 first round picks and then, you look at the talent in this draft, maybe next season, just in general, you don't always know who's going to come through. But when you look at how strong this year's draft is, potentially even the year following, and because then you'll have the Tyron Stokes, and of course that's just one player. But when you look at that, it makes the Bane trade look worse because then there's other young talent that they're missing out on. But that's enough on the Magic. In general, from the Pistons, what'd you see from the Pistons this series? They're going into a series against excuse me, the Pistons series against the Cavs next, and I think those teams are pretty equally talented. Um, I think that's like that six minimum, but I could see another 7 game series there.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, who's gonna be better in the situation, like if you need a bucket, when it's like last couple seconds, Cade or Don. Because honestly that Cade Cunningham is probably top five, and having Tobias Harris, who, might be one of, if not the best role player in the league, showing that game seven, dropping 30. Um and they I feel like they both have equal defense. Um, you know, the Cavs got Evan Mobley, Pistons have Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren. Um, and I feel like James Harden is gonna need to do like what he does in regular season. I feel like in the playoffs he's been pretty quiet so far. It's really been Donovan Mitchell doing all the heavy carrying. So I really want to see something from Harden, showing that he is one of the best players, not one of the best players, but one of the best lasting players, and he could show that he could still play in the playoffs.
I think you're gonna need a big series from Harden. But that's the thing is like that shouldn't really be that difficult of a statement. Like you're gonna need a big series from Harden because he is a superstar and getting paid like one. So like that should be an immediate expectation is that he plays to his contract and to the guy that he is, honestly. Like the version of Harden that wants to score the ball and put pressure on the defense and the version of Harden that, lets the game come to him, they're two different guys and I think there's tendency um oddly for whatever reason, I think there's tendency for good players to sort of go the LeBron route of like, it's a feel out game. Game one's a feel out game. And now game two, I'm getting into it. But, in game four is when I'll really, turn it on. And it's like, nah, man, game one is the way you approach game seven like you're approaching game one. And obviously you might say, well, we're not going to throw every coverage we have at them game one because there's an IQ battle. There's an X's and O's battle going on as well. And I don't want to minimize that, but from an intensity standpoint, there is no feel out game, not in the playoffs, and there shouldn't be. And so I think there's a tendency of players who are like first, second, third time all stars when they start getting into that realm, to try to take a look at some of the guys who are 15, 16-year all stars and be like, yeah, oh, they have feel out games, well I should have a feel out game. Like, no, you're not a feel out player. And now obviously James Harden's been in the league a long time, but we don't need a feel out game, especially against the one seed. And whether or not you think they're a legitimate one seed in the Pistons or not, you look at the Cavs from 2 years ago, and they were far and away one seed. They had like that 22 game win streak or something like that. And so obviously the playoffs change everything, and there's a lot to look at there. But I think the Cavs need to come out firing if they're gonna have a chance in this series, and I don't want to say chance in this series, but I think the Cavs need to win Game One. Um, I think if the Pistons take a 2-0 lead, I just haven't seen the intensity necessary from the Cavs. I haven't seen the intensity necessary from James Harden. Frankly, I think every year we're looking at does Mobley take the leap? Does he develop, more of a shot? Does he whatever? I think Mobley is what he is, and he's a great player. But people there was conversation for a while about him being one of those top 20 guys, maybe top 15. Can he even get further than that? Can he be a top 10 player because of his strength, at his size and his length and ability to cover the floor, switch on the perimeter? But I just don't think his offensive game has taken the leap necessary.
Yeah. Um, I I think the Cavs do need to win Game One. I think it really depends on home crowd because Pistons fans are crazy, especially because they haven't seen winning like this in a couple in years now. Especially knowing that they have a chance to win a championship for the first time in I think 20 years. Um, uh, if they do get to the final, it's gonna be hard to beat the Thunder, but I think James Harden needs to show what he could do, and they need to match the defensive intensity of the Pistons. And the Pistons don't give up at all, and the Cavs have to be ready for that.
I do. I think that's a great way to put it. Like, I think I've seen some quit in the Cavs in the first series, against the Raptors. I mean, I know it went seven, and they ended up with nearly a 20-point victory in Game Seven. I would chalk that up to the Raptors' complete lack of firepower. Like, I think the Raptors played a great series with the personnel that they have. I think they showed a lot of heart, a lot of just an unwillingness to accept that they were the worst team, in that series. And I would argue it probably sucks more knowing that they got them to a Game 7 and then lost. But like, that's I would feel great about that series if I'm a Raptors fan, and I would feel very bad about that series if I'm a Cavs fan, even though the Cavs, you know, took it in the end. But I just think the Raptors, they're a young team. Obviously, they didn't have Ingram. And now I'm not saying that Ingram had a great series prior, but he had some moments. And I think those are moments that can help you, especially in a Game 7. Um, and a little bit of that speculation. We don't know exactly how it would pan out, but I think they're a team where if they have money to spend, and I mean, granted, they're in Toronto, it's a little bit harder to get stars to Toronto. Um, but if they have money to spend, and I'm a younger, talented, star, like I'm looking at that team as like they don't quit. They're some offense away. Um, but I also think that's one of the things. If you're a star, you shouldn't be looking at like, oh, well, if I just go to the Celtics, if I just go to the Thunder, then we'll be great. Like, you don't have to go to the Wizards, but go to a team where your value can be measured. Like, obviously, like, you look at the Warriors of 17-18, and it's hard to say, like, obviously, like, Durant was in the conversations. Is he the greatest player in the world? Maybe he might have been, but it's harder to say on a stacked team like that whether or not he's the greatest player in the world, because it's harder to measure his value when there's three other superstars. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so I mean, Durant could get traded this offseason if he requests one. Who knows? We'll get into that in a second. But I think as long as you're comfortable living in Canada, which that is a bit of a sell, bit of a long shot. They're a good team, and they're a team that I'm excited to watch for the next couple of years and see how they adjust. I think Rajakovic, I think his name is. I could be butchering that, but the head coach, I think he coached a great series, and just the mentality was impressive from Game 1. Um, let's move on a little bit here. Let's talk. I know we got Sixers Knicks coming up. Um, but Sixers Celtics, man. Like I game 7, Sixers go into Boston, win one. As a Bucks fan, that was my game 7. I Bucks not living the glory days right now. So all I can really hope for is a Celtics loss, and I got that. So it's a good consolation prize for the Bucks not being in the playoffs. But like, man, what a collapse from the Celtics after being up 3-1. I know Joel Embiid came back. I don't think that can be an excuse by any means. This was a collapse by the Celtics. What were you seeing?
I mean, so I was actually at the movie theater about to see the Michael Jackson biopic, and I saw on Instagram Jason Tatum's out, and I went, "Oh my God, the Sixers are actually going to beat the number 2 seed."
So let
Um,
me ask you this though. Tatum was out game 7, but played prior to that, and he looked like he couldn't really shift laterally. Clearly not fully back on that leg. Um, I think he should have been out the whole series. I think I think it's really tough to adjust to, like, for example, if Luka Doncic comes back mid Rocket series, I think the Lakers lose that first game at least. The first game he comes back. Because then it's the whole time you're thinking like, well, is LeBron still the leader? Or is it back to our number one option, Luka Doncic? And, Reeves coming back, like that second game, third game with Reeves, like they were more in sync. But it takes a couple games to get back to like, all right, what's the pecking order? How do we play? Who's taking this shot?
yeah, I know JT was in the games before. He hadn't like. I feel like since coming back, he was probably just like, "Oh, I want to do like what Kobe did, come like as soon as possible, because that's his idol." Um, I feel like this entire season since he came back, he hasn't really been like the biggest difference maker. Obviously, him being there definitely led to a lot more wins. Um, but I feel like this entire season had just been Jaylen Brown. Like Jaylen Brown was the guy even when JT came back. Um, and I think that JT definitely should have played less minutes, and I think he could have even sat out a game or two before game 7 and really tried to, work on that ACL a little bit more because, it's been I think less than a year since he tore it. And Kyrie, he's being smart. He's gonna go 100% full recovery, come back as, best he possibly can, while JT was just, I need to get back on the court as soon as I can. Um, because I feel like he thinks he's the best player on the team, and in terms of skill, he is. But I feel like Jaylen Brown really like he was in the MVP race for I think a couple months. Like that's insane. We haven't seen that from JT I think since 23, 24. So yeah,
Which is only 2 years ago. I mean, it's not,
yeah,
so it's not that he's not that. I think they are the most expensive backcourt in NBA history. Right? They're both on like $300 million contracts. The If you are both on $300 million contracts, I want you combining for like 60 points and maybe at least 10 assists as a unit, because then that's what we're paying for. And I think it's really hard to have. Now I know that they've won a championship. I just think now that they've won the championship, now Jaylen Brown can go, I got one on the finger. And Tatum can go, I got one on the finger now, right? So now if you've done that, what is Brown looking for? He's like, well then where's my MVP? because I got the ring and I don't have the respect that I think I want because I got the ring and people look at me like I'm a secondary option. So now, even though jealousy is not the right word, but I think there is a level of just winning another ring. I don't think it's going to satisfy him.
Yeah, I feel like
And, you know,
uh, you know, Jalen Brown, I feel like everybody was a little shocked that he was Finals MVP when they won it. Because everybody was like, "Oh, it's probably Jason Tatum," um, which shows he can be the best player on the team.
hmm
At times and throughout the entire season he was. So I feel like that really shows he can win MVP. Depends. He could go some like the Raptors, and he could be that star power that they need, and also be by far the best player on the team and be the number one option.
I think that's exactly what it comes down to and if I'm reading into something that is not there and makes no sense, that could be the case. But I think there's a subconscious, whether or not they like it or not, a level of Tatum being like, that was my finals MVP, you know? And Jalen Brown being like, yeah, we got a championship, but I'm really the first option. I am because who won the finals MVP, right? And then you see the things like, Tatum's out. And earlier in the season, Jalen Brown's posting like, man, highest offensive rating for a team, whenever. And then after the game, even yesterday, after they were eliminated, he was like, he was streaming or something, and he was like, yeah, this is my favorite season because I got to, finally be the first option, and look how they're calling this, and there's an agenda out to get me, um, and I just think that is like I'm not gonna speak on like my take on what he said. I don't really think it matters. Um, but I think that is a little bit showing of your character in the sense where I think you can do no wrong, and because of that, you should be rewarded X, Y, and Z. And I feel like, well, you got $300 million contract. Like if that doesn't satisfy you, then you might not be satisfied on this Celtics team. So there's that series. Knicks Hawks. I thought Knicks Hawks good series. I was rooting for the Hawks. Some of that was maybe the fact that they were the underdog. Some of that was I actually believed in some of the Hawks' young players. I thought they could do more. I think they're still maybe a year or two away from really breaking into what I think that they can become, namely Jalen Johnson. I don't think I was expecting him to be, a real engine for the Hawks in this series. And though he had games where, there were times where he was, making himself, a force to be reckoned with. I don't think he had the confidence and the willingness to take over that I was hoping that he would have at this point in his career. But I still think it can. I still think it can totally be unlocked. I think he's going to keep getting better. By no means do I think that this is anywhere near a ceiling for this Hawks team. But there are a couple questions I have about them in general. I think uh, Alexander Walker, I think most improved player this season, great season, showed a lot, but I still think he's like your third or fourth option. I think about him back when he was on the Wolves, and he could absolutely have had a bigger role, but on those teams where you got Edwards, Towns, McDaniels, then Nikhil Alexander Walker, and Gobert's very limited on offense, but starting centered, the defense is speaks for itself. Like I think having him as a third or fourth option that can potentially give you that 20-25 points, like that's what makes a great team a great team. But if he's a second option all year, kind of the way that he was on the Hawks this year, it's like, yeah, you might get him to average 24 points, 22 points, whatever the case may be, but the impact is not that of a second option. And so like the stats may still show the impact is there, but it's not like second option impact where this guy's presence on the floor. Think LeBron and Anthony Davis, right? Tatum and Brown. Like just having this guy's impact, him being on the floor makes the defense have to adjust constantly. You have to be, head on a swivel, aware of him at all times. I think he had great performances with McCollum as that one option, but I just don't think he can be the second option. I think for this team moving forward, I also don't know how much longer McCollum can be an engine. Offensively, I think you're looking at McCollum and you say, I don't know, third option maybe on a championship team, not because his talent level isn't there, but like that at this point in his career, that's where I would place him as like a third option on a championship team. And I think for the Hawks to take that next step, Jalen Johnson needs to become the bona fide first option. McCollum maybe move into that second spot, or they make a trade, get a secondary option, and then Nickeil Alexander-Walker still can be a starting player, still can improve, but I think he has to sit in that third, fourth range. That's where I'm seeing. And then Dyson Daniels, like his defense is great. He's got to be able to do something offensively. I think the NBA is moving away in general from guys that can do completely nothing on one side of the floor. And honestly, that's one of the things with Asar. Asar might be the best perimeter defender in the league. But like not being able to like even potentially hit like a shot from the free throw line is just so damning in the playoffs.
Speaking of Asar, I saw him shoot a three yesterday and I was like, why the hell did he just shoot that? Like, what is he, why is he sitting in the corner, wide open, like he's about to, you know, put up a shot? Second of all, he should be in the mid range area where he could potentially make a shot.
Well, that's what
Um,
I feel all the time is I'm like, all right, there's two options if you can't shoot the ball. You can sit in if you have Asar's body. Like, granted, he's a little bit smaller, but like you could play that Aaron Gordon role in that dunker spot, and you can kind of roam, get some flashes to the paint, some easy buckets, some putbacks. He's athletic. He can jump up and rebound. He's got long arms. Like I think he should. I think he averaged 10 points a game this year. I'd like to see him get into that like 16 a game, and I think they can all come from like 80% of his buckets can come from offensive rebounds, and putbacks and, backdoor cuts. But there just needs to be something where like, Aaron Gordon can sometimes hit the three, but if you're not going to play that Aaron Gordon dunker spot roaming baseline role, right? The other option is not sitting in the corner if you can't. Like I think they're like people resort to being like, oh, okay, well, can't do much, can't do much with the ball in his hands or dribble, so like we'll just park him in the corner. But then it's like, yeah, that's actually removing a good shot then from your shot chart because he's not taking it. So I think the other option is like if you can't shoot, you got to be on that Curry diet plan, which is like maybe not the shots, but you got to be running like 10 miles a game. Like move constantly. Just cut through backdoor, curl screens, just get him like going downhill to the basket, and he can make things happen when he's going downhill to the basket. But like it's just, you're basically playing 4-on-5 if you're parking him in the corner. Because even if he gets the shot, he's not even taking it. So, I mean, he's not shooting, 17% from three. He's shooting 0% from three. He's not shooting the ball. So, like, if that's, I just think that is the NBA's catching on to that too quick. The game is constantly evolving and coaches are constantly innovating. And I just think, having some of these guys at, that are completely one-sided, it's an issue. And I mean, look at Reed Shepherd. Like, Reed Shepherd's all offense, no defense, right? So we go to this Lakers series. well, first I got a couple more things I want to say about the Knicks, but we'll get into Lakers series for a second. But that's sort of the thing is like Reed Shepard's like constantly picked on like every single time down the floor. It's like where's the Reed Shepard mismatch? Your turn. You got him. You know, um, it's like, and that's not like Reed Shepard's fault, his body, but he put up no resistance. And I think that's the thing. It's like if you might not be a good defender, but like you have to find a way to put some resistance on the guy in front of you. Because if they're just walking to the basket, drawing two because it's a naturally you need help if Reed Shepard's in front of you, like those shots are just way too easy, way too routine in the playoffs. I think they played better in games 4, game 5. But they're I just don't think that's like a recipe for success, and I just don't know how long Reed Shepard can survive in this league on that style. Because in general, it's like I think mostly when people give contracts out, when teams give out contracts, they're like, I'm giving you the contract for what I think you'll do in the playoffs. If I'm only thinking about what you're doing in the regular season, then I must think that we're not making the playoffs. And so then if you're a guy that can't play defense, you're either perpetually on bottom feeder teams who can't make the playoffs, or you have to develop, on one end of the floor. Um, but yeah, that's my take there. Rockets, Lakers. Um, we'll get into that series now. The GOAT did it. I think as far as LeBron's performance, game 5 I thought sucked. He sucked in game 5. Um, game actually as a whole, the Lakers sucked in game 5, but they feed off LeBron. They feed off his energy, his approach to the game. He didn't show up in game 5, but other than that, I mean, the Lakers walked in there. Granted, Durant didn't play. I understand, but everyone called this in a 5 or 6 game series for the Rockets. No Doncic, no Reeves. Reeves came back game 5. Um, I just this is. I think you take a look at the roster construction for the Rockets, and you're like, all right, certain things didn't pan out. Jabari Smith, I think, is what Jabari Smith is. I don't think he's taken the leap that they want him to take offensively. I think he's a good defender. I think he is a stretch big. He can hit the three ball on catch and shoots, but he's not a guy that creates his own shot. I don't think he creates for others. I think he's very limited in his role. I think he struggles to get to his spots. But I also think the thing is like nothing that I'm saying wasn't in his draft analysis or combine or whatever the case may be. Like this is what people thought of him when he came into the league, and his potential weaknesses have just they've stayed, and his weaknesses at Auburn are the same thing with his weaknesses now. Um, you spend a third overall pick on Reed Shepard, and his limitations, I think, were I didn't like the pick. Um, I'm not saying it was the strongest draft class, but I didn't like the pick. I didn't think it was what the Rockets need. I mean, granted, they need 3-point shooting, so I can understand that perspective, but I also don't think like the Rockets knew who their coach was. And I don't see how Reed Shepard fits in with a Udoka style of offense or defense. His whole thing's about being like tough and like bullying the other team, making life hard on them, having a gritty defense. Like these are not characteristics of a Reed Shepard, basketball performance. And so like I didn't like that fit in general. So I think those are 2 draft picks that didn't pan out for them exactly how they want. And then I think their Amen Thompson is maybe the most athletic player in the league. He is no jumper either.
Yeah, no jumping.
And I know that when he's on the floor, the Rockets are still much better on offense than when he's off the floor because of his athleticism in the way he can get into the paint and facilitate, draw two and find the open man, kick to threes. There's strengths to his game, but I think that's another thing is you're looking at another guy who can't really create his own shot, and I'm emphasis on shot. He can get to the basket, but he can't create his own shot. And so I was really impressed with the Lakers defense. I was really impressed with their game plan. I think Braun showed up for 5 of the 6 games. And I think that was the tale of the series.
Yeah. For Reed Shepard, I don't really know much about him. All I know is that there was a clip about LeBron saying something to him, and he had like 2 buckets in a row, and then he was like viral for getting two buckets on LeBron. Which I mean, I guess. Um, I do want to mention Tari Eason. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he had a great series, especially having to come in to be a starter. I think 1 or 2 games into the series after Durant got hurt, and he did what he did. He defended LeBron, which is not easy to do, even though at his age he's still a really good player. I think Tyrese really, showed that eventually he could be a top defender in the league. He played really good defense. Um, yeah, and I think Sengun is just, well, Sengun. There's not really much to do about him.
So I'll comment on both of those. So Tari Eason, I think he did play a great series. That the effort was there. I think he did what Tari Eason is capable of doing. You know what I'm saying? But Tari Eason's he's a sixth, seventh, maybe eighth man, depending on how the roster is constructed. And though a great defender and a guy that I think most teams in the league would love to add to their bench, you place him in the starting lineup guarding LeBron, he's already limited on offense, and now you put LeBron on him, so he's spending most of his energy trying to stop LeBron. Like, what do you think you're getting on the offensive side? Like, the biggest issue with this series wasn't the Lakers putting up 120 points a game. They weren't. They were just outscoring the Rockets, who couldn't put up any points. And I think it's also one of the issues with Shingun is like he can get his, but they don't do anything for the team. Like, the ball goes to Sengun. He might spend 15, 20 seconds backing down his guy, and it might result in 2 points, but it doesn't spark any momentum for your team. It's hard to get runs off when he's on the floor. Like, he does things Sengun's way, but Sengun's way doesn't overpower another team. It doesn't get other teammates involved. I know he's a decent passer, but he's a decent passer out of the double. He's not like when he was kind of elevating in this league, there was people like, oh, is he baby Jokic or whatever? Like, no, he's not baby Jokic, because though they have similar like aesthetic styles of play, Jokic's skill set is still far, far greater than Sengun's. He's larger than him. He seemingly is a little bit quicker. He's a better passer. He has a better 3-point shot, and I think like just those things alone are why he can be an offensive hub, and you can actually run your offense through Jokic because he can do all of those things. And when he's getting his own and then kicks out and the 3-pointers are going in for Jamal Murray or for Aaron Gordon. I mean, Christian Brown, not a great series, but like when he's going and he gets everyone else involved, then you're looking at a situation where like, all right, hey, this is really hard to deal with because if we double, he finds the right guy. If we don't double, he abuses who's ever in front of him. We lay off him, he can hit the three. You know, and he's mobile. So like his big drawback is his defense was truly abysmal. We'll talk about that in a second. But he has the the skills to run an entire offense through him. Sengun, you can't run an entire offense through him and have it be a high-powered, effective offense, in my opinion. But at the same time, if you aren't running things through him, he falls through the cracks, and he doesn't have the same much value. So he's a really difficult player, I think, to figure out where he fits. Because if he's going to be a star, I don't know that the entire team can be successful. But I also think if he's not going to be the star of your team, he's not worth the contract that he gets. And so I just think, for whatever reason, for the contract, the personnel, the team identity, whatever the case may be, I think just like it's a tough situation with Sengun. Um, Moving on. Uh, let's see, where do we want to go next? I think we go Nuggets Wolves. Um, Nuggets Wolves 6-game series, didn't make it to 7. Wolves win the final 2 games without Edwards, without DiVincenzo. I mean, this is an all-time collapse from the Nuggets. No other way around it. Obviously, Aaron Gordon missing some time at the end of that series. I think two things. I think one, I think it showed just how much of an impact Aaron Gordon has on the Nuggets offense. His defense as well. Like, my goodness, Aaron Gordon goes down and you like, are the Nuggets like one of the worst defensive, like man defensive teams out there? Like, they can't stay in front of a stone. And on the other side of that, not enough can be said about Jaden McDaniels. Naz Reid was also great, but like Jaden McDaniels was the engine. He was, he was confident. He was shooting. He seemed extremely comfortable taking the first option role as soon as Edwards went down. Frankly, I would argue, I think he stole that second option role from Julius Randle. Should Edwards come back? Like, I just think I didn't see enough from Randle in the series, and the Wolves still won. But that's all Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and so yeah, just really really impressive.
Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was said that he's expected to come back, Anthony Edwards. Um, I know kind of people were like thinking Randall would do something now that, Edwards is gone. He's not, you know, shooting the ball as much. There's obviously more passing. But I think those four, Randall, Edwards, McDaniels, and Reed, and I guess Gobert, for defense and everything, that starting five is really powerful. I think not having DiVincenzo is a huge blow because that is your engine coming off the bench. That is your reliability. Um, when it comes to, oh, this guy's gas, he's been playing for like 38 minutes, he needs a break. DiVincenzo goes in, hits a few threes, creates some shots, plays some defense. Um, I think that's a big thing for the Wolves. I think, the Edwards coming back is obviously a fantastic thing for them. I really do like the Wolves. I think they're one of the most exciting teams in terms of like, young, in terms of like age, because, a couple of the starters are a little older, Gobert and Julius Randle, but those three, McDaniels, Edwards, and I'm pretty sure Nadri is like, what, he's 26? Around there?
26, but another guy that I think he might be 26, 27. I could be wrong. Who stepped up big time was Ayo Dosunmu.
Yes.
And coming in 6-man role, knowing that their leading scorer was out, knowing that a guy that can knock down a few threes and bring some energy for them in DiVincenzo out, was able to step up, especially in Game 5. What a performance! Just and I think like that is one of the characteristics of teams in the playoffs, especially in the last few years. That I think it is like one of the best indicators of how talented a team really is and how far they'll go. It's like you look at the Thunder, yeah, Shea's 90, 8, 99% of the time he's giving you 30 and 10 or whatever the case may be. Like he's probably the best player in basketball right now. Um just excellent really almost every night. But if for some reason Shea doesn't have it that night, well, here comes a Case and Wallace 30 piece. Oh, he doesn't have it? All right. Well, here comes Chet's got 25 and 12 tonight. Oh, he doesn't have it. I mean, they're missing, Jalen Williams right now. Obviously unfortunate injury. Hopefully he can come back just for the sake of the game, honestly. But everyone, they didn't have it that night. Lou Dort had 8 threes. He couldn't miss. And so I think that's one of the keys to these teams is benches where the guys are willing to step up when needed, knowing that hey, most games, 95% of the games, I'm not getting more than 3 shots. But some guys go down and you need 15 shots out of me tonight, and I'm still going to make 9 of them. And I'm going to put up, 24 and 6 or something like that. I'm just rattling off a line, but like those are the teams that scare me. And so if Edwards can come back, obviously DiVincenzo's it's still gonna be a blow to the Wolves, but like they have guys that are willing to step up. Does McDaniels stay? Does he keep that energy? Like, especially going into this series against the Spurs, you got Wemby on that. I mean, if anyone's gonna stay in front of Wemby and give him, some difficulty, like they could probably Gobert. Um, I think Wemby can get by him because he's so agile. I think if he doesn't settle for threes, I think he can make life a little bit difficult on Gobert. But I've seen Wemby settle for threes. So I think this is going to be another great series. But all credit to the Wolves. Collapsed by the Nuggets. I also think the Nuggets Christian Brown is a sixth, seventh man, I think. On a team who needs, a starting, larger guard, smaller forward situation, and you're in a bind, like, yeah, he can fill that role, but on a 5-year, $125 million deal, he's not that player. He's not a $125 million player. He was disgusting from 3 in the series. I think he's got the confidence of a player, but I just don't think he's got I don't think he possesses the talents that you want out of the guy in his role. And in his role, you're like, I need you to hit some open threes and I need you to play great defense. Neither of those were strong suits of his, especially in this series. So yeah, I think that's the tale of the series right there. And also, like, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Jokic looked uninterested and that he just did not want to be there. Like, that is the best way that I can describe it because, yeah, he's a bad defender, but he wasn't just getting bullied. He simply was not trying to play defense. Guys were walking right by him. Okay, I'll just get it out the net. And I don't know what the case may be. It's very unlike him. We've seen him. He's won a championship. That isn't the Jokic that I know. Now, the Jokic I know is not a great defender. Don't get me wrong. But, like, he just looked dejected. He just looked like he had something better to do. Something else was on his mind. Didn't feel like he wanted to take over. It felt like there were times where, like, in bits and pieces and in spurts, he was like, "Oh, let me remind people who the best player on the planet is." And instead of doing that, just opted to foul bait. And there was some really egregious attempts at foul baiting that weren't called and just looked horrible for him. And it something was off with him, and he is not free of criticism, but something was so off with him, it doesn't feel like it was typical, like, yeah, bad game, can't have that, that's unacceptable. More so like just like feels like one of those things where like the man's like, like his, someone in his family passed or something, or like, just like it's just like an unfortunate situation. Like I don't want to speculate, but just like something where it feels like outside of basketball, he was not the same Jokic, and that was evident to me, from game two. So
Um, I forget the Timberwolves are playing the Spurs.
in
Uh,
this upcoming set tonight,
yeah,
yes.
I think it's besides obviously the finals, depending on who's in there. I'm probably the most excited for this series. It'll. I'm expecting it to go to Game 7. Uh, because you know the Spurs are just Wemby, Castle, and Fox are ridiculous. The three of them together. I mean,
And D Harp, I mean,
oh, that's right. I forgot about Dylan
D
Harper.
Harp has, he's not playing like a rookie.
Yeah.
And I know that's like that classic coach speak, or whatever. Is that a rookie out there? But like he looks comfortable in the biggest stages. Like it's it's typical for guys to be like, all right, I had a great season, great rookie season, and woo, like they ramp things up here a little bit. Give me a series to adjust. Let me see. Okay, all right, what's going on here? Um, that ain't that ain't D Hart. Like he's seems ready for these moments, um, and confident and wanting to make a statement. And frankly, I'll say like in humbly so. Like he's not out there boasting. I saw a clip of him earlier today being like, "Man, I'm just happy that I got NBA socks." And like I don't got a pair of NBA socks. I want NBA socks. But just I think he's just going to be so good in this league. Like that, I don't really need to say much more about it, but it's just going to be exciting watching him play, for many years to come, and just knowing that he's already capable of doing it at the, in the playoffs, welcoming those moments. Whether or not he's with the Spurs down the line, or if he is, traded in a James Harden situation where a team believes he can be, their star and their engine going forward. So, that'll be interesting. Blazers Spurs. That was another good series. That was only a 5 game series, but I enjoyed every game. Um, I think that was one of the series where that's just clearly a better team. Like on all fronts. Um, I was impressed. I didn't think Avdia would have the series he had. Um, I've been a little bit of skeptical about his game because of the sheer amount of free throws he shot this season. I didn't know that would hold up in the playoffs, and I didn't know if he'd be able to get the points elsewhere. But he was aggressive. He gets into the lane better than I had expected. I might need to watch him a bit more, frankly. But he's able to get downhill. He's able to find open shooters. And he's honestly he's very like agile and nimble in the lane. He can just sort of snake it around defenders. He's a good finisher. Still developing. Sort of like an on his on the move shooting mechanics don't feel very smooth to me, and I think that's the next step for him. Uh, but had a great series. I think Scoot showed a lot this series. I think I have been like when Scoot was in the draft 2 years ago, 3 years ago with Wemby. I was like, man, if Wemby wasn't here, like if Wemby wasn't a 7'5" like freak, like I'd be like, I am taking Scoot. Like it's not even a question. Like his tape was
Hmm.
ridiculous to me, and maybe that speaks to my inability to scout, you know. But I think he showed a lot that he belongs in this league. Can do some good things. His three ball has clearly developed. Um, I think his ceiling will be that of like a maybe like a starting guard, but I don't think ever a starting guard. But like a 6 man role, like I think that's him, and I think he can have a really solid career doing that. Obviously, I don't think he panned out to be a second round, a second overall pick, the way the Blazers were hoping. But I do think he showed some real development and some confidence, and that he wasn't shy of the playoffs for the moment, and he had some big games. So even though they didn't take the series, I think there was some good for the Blazers to feel proud of.
Yeah, go back to Denny Advi. I feel like he's one of those guys where like, oh, he has like 1, 2 good seasons. He's like, oh, I mean, it's not gonna probably keep up. Kind of like Mikal Bridges when he was on the Nets. Like he had that good
Mm-hmm.
season when he came in, and then he got traded, and you haven't really heard from him since. Like I was watching the Knicks game, was it 2 nights ago or whatever, and I was like, forgot Mikal Bridges was in the league. Like I feel like that's kind of what people expect of Advia through his first couple seasons, where it's like, okay, he had 1, 2 good seasons where he was averaging like 20, 21 points a game, and then he'll get traded, and now that'll just be it. But no, he's a great basketball player, and I think he obviously will continue to be Portland's number one option for a good amount of time unless he gets traded. And I think Scoot Henderson, I feel like he's one of those guys where like he's sort of like, one season he's going to be like, oh, I was like maybe 14, 15 points a game. And then eventually I think he's going to get up to like 20, 22. Like, I feel like eventually he will be one of the best like role players in the league. I think he'll develop into a great shooter. Obviously, it's developed a little bit. He's been able to shoot the ball more. But he's athletic for 6'2", 6'3". Um, I think they need to really believe in him more. I feel like Portland, they believed in him, drafting him number two. But ever since like that rookie season, second season where he was like, okay, they've been like, yeah, whatever, he'll just come off the bench, he'll average what he averages, and then he might be like one of those guys where like maybe like 2, 3 years time, we trade away for like another pick, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think the thing for him is to stay aggressive, continue getting downhill. Obviously, the shot has to continue developing, continue improving. That's only going to open up more things for him, more opportunities to score, more opportunity to just be. I also think he could be a real pest defensively if he puts his mind to that, and becomes a guy who just like I think of like a guy like a Javon Carter, whereas like he doesn't have a whole lot, but like he's going to pick up 94 feet
yeah,
and it's just going to be annoying. Like he's probably not going to steal the ball a ton from you. But it's just like he's going to take 8 seconds off the clock, just you getting the ball across half court, and then he's going to follow you on your hip all the way around. And, I'm not saying it's not going to lead to a bucket somewhere down the line if you play good offense, but it's just like it weighs on the offensive player just being like, dude, get off me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think Scoot could be one of those guys who's like, dude, I'm just gonna be on your hip the entire game. Like, whether or not you score, don't score, like I'm just gonna bother you. Um, and so like a TJ McConnell, it's like, is he gonna completely stop a guy from scoring? No, but whoever he's on is thinking to themselves like, and TJ McConnell, man, like I don't want to. Fine, and I think that's what you can get out of Scoot. So, final series that we hadn't touched a lot on, sweep, Thunder Suns. I think we knew what that one was going to be. The Thunder really are just one of the best teams we've seen in a long time, and the Suns are they're like I don't want to say a rebuild, but they're like rebuilding what their idea of a championship roster is
yeah,
under Matt Ishbia, and like they they I think they played with heart, they played with effort, I think they could have stolen one game, maybe two somewhere if everything shook out, the right way. But I don't think there was any way they were winning this series. Um, that wasn't in the cards for them. And I think this is one of those series where like just for the Suns, it's a good measuring stick of like, all right, where are we? Okay, we got swept by the guys who are probably the favorites to win the championship. Like, all right, that's how far away we are. We need, you know, this, that, and that. You pull two games and you're like, oh, okay, so like here's how we measure up. Okay, here's how far away we are. I think the Suns are far away, but they have buy-in from Booker, um, so that'll always make you at least a certain level of talent. That'll probably get you to an 8 seed having Booker on the team. Um, I think Dylan Brooks is like he's such a goofball, but he's just become better. Like he's a little less his antics now are a little funnier than they are just like childish and frustrating. Like when he does that thing where he just like stands there and stares at the other team. It's like I don't really mind. It's weird, it's silly, but it's like that's not you can still be that's just like a weird thing you do. You know what I'm saying? Where as opposed to being like, I'm gonna try to poke the bear in every press conference. Like that doesn't like that doesn't help your case. It doesn't help your team. It actually just makes it harder on you guys because then the other team's like, I'm gonna show you. But I think now his antics are a little more calm. He still tries to get in his opponent's head, but I think it's in a bit more of like a silly, fun within the game type of way, as opposed to him just being like a team locker room, sort of issue. Just a guy bringing negative energy, unwanted negative energy. I think he's sort of changed a bit in that aspect, and he's playing better. Like he's not letting guys really get in his head out there, and because that was the thing a couple years ago. It's like he tries so hard getting in other guys' heads that it's like they're actually in his, you know. Um, that sweep. You don't got to spend a lot of time on that series. Suns will try to retool, try to get some guys in the draft. Continue building here, and I would if they were an 8 seed this year, I project them to be a 7 seed next year. It's minor incremental changes, and then the Thunder, obviously Lakers next series. See how that shakes out, but yeah, man, I think that'll do it for first episode. Courtside Cousins here.
I just want to say like one more
Um,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Uh, Going back to the 76ers, Tyrese Maxey is ridiculous, and um, he would average 30 in that first series. And Embiid, going back to what you said about Tatum, how you like kind of need a couple games, to get settled in. Uh, Embiid in that Game 7 series looked dead after that fourth quarter finished.
Mm.
And I said to my brother, uh, that was the first time I've seen Joel Embiid play good basketball since his MVP season. Like that was,
He
Joel
played really
Embiid.
well in all the games that he played in the series when he came back.
Yeah,
Um, gotta. I mean, the Celtics just weren't able to really do anything with his size. Um, I mean, I frankly thought the Sixers could have gone to him even more. In some of those games, especially in the last two, I was just like, just until they figure out a way to keep him from, just sort of rolling his shoulder off and getting a layup, go right to it. But Maxi was incredible. I mean, he's a superstar in this
yeah,
league. I think clearly solidified himself in that role. The last 2 seasons, and it's interesting because I don't think he's looked at as a bona fide superstar in this league. I don't think he's marketed that way. Um, but I think it is, definitely the case. You know, he's to me a very similar player to Donovan Mitchell. Like
Yeah.
they are just, and frankly, it might be better. You know, like time will tell. Um, but yeah, all right, that'll do for the first episode here. Work through every mistake and awkward pause and terrible take, and we'll keep working on it and getting better. But yeah, I think a good start. You know.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll stop the recording here and